Charli XCX does not call her new album The Remixes or Brat Remixed. She calls it Brat, and it's completely different, but also Brat. And that got me interested. You know, why isn't she using that word? Does she not consider it to be a remix album? And then that got me thinking about something else. Like, what is a remix album? It turns out the term itself goes back to 1613, I guess in sort of scientific context. You know, there weren't like Renaissance composers remixing music. But the modern usage basically predates to 60s, 70s, largely credited to Lee Scratch Perry like so many things. And rap and pop and dance songs really popularized it. So this got me thinking, like, what is the function of a remix album? And what makes a good remix album? And the issue is, I think there's a real conflict. I think there's a conflict at the heart of any remix album for the fans, maybe even for the artist as well. Because it's trying to do two things which are maybe contradictory. One, it's supposed to remind you of the original, and then two, change the original enough to justify you listening to it. So it's like simultaneously trying to change and not change at the same time. It's trying to find this balance between pointless and too far, too similar and too different. And what I want to do is I want to talk about this excellent remix album, because it is excellent. A couple songs I don't think are amazing, but for the most part I think it is. And talk about these two different functions that remix albums serve. The first, of course, is to remind. I apologize for the lighting. It's going to get better. We're having a rough weekend. We're potty training my 2-year-old, and it's rough in the house. I have to record as the sun rises. So as I record, by the way, you will see the sunrise. So just chill with that. This is my baby monitor to make sure she's okay. I think about it all the time. So this is a reminder, right? Like a good remix will remind you of something, will remind you of the project that you love so much, will remind you of the music. But what will make it good is if it deepens that feeling, deepens that emotion, deepens that message, deepens that soundscape, whatever it is. If we have this dichotomy of the remix, that is one side, and a positive way to do it is to deepen. So you could do basically the same thing, but as long, and this is just my subjective opinion, as long as you make it something more. A bad reminder, okay, boo, a bad reminder would not deepen. It just sort of is essentially a remix. just like changing the way that it sounds on a microscopic level. I should say that there is value to that kind of simple remix. And part of this whole thing reminds me of a video I made a couple years ago where I talked about the Beatles who re-released Revolver. And these cash-grabbing pigs, you know, they made a 4-album disc, and one of them was mixed the way it used to be, one was in mono, and one was a brand new mix by the son of the original producer, and there were outtakes and all that. And I made a video, I came up here 2 years ago, and I said how I would never buy it because I love the original too much. I just want to sit with it. How I would never own that, you know. And here it is. There's the box set. I ended up buying it because, of course I did, because it's a perfect album, because it's one of my favorite albums, and because I wanted to think about it more. I wanted to hear it more. Even if it's a little different, I'll go hear it more. I'm one of those suckers where every time George Lucas would re-release Star Wars, I'd go buy it. I'd be like, oh, what's that? It's in Dolby 5.2 sound, not Dolby 5.1 sound? Better get it again. It's part of the joy and the passion of being a real fan. So even a bad reminder still has interest. But what about the other side, where you're trying to change things? I'm trying to stick with the re-words. I don't know if you've noticed that. Well, then you can have a project that doesn't remind, but that reconfigures, okay? That changes, reformulates what it is that you're listening to. It can often radically change it. The way I like to think about it, especially in terms of electronic dance music or music like this, is fangs. So some music has fangs, and the reconfiguration, the reformulation, removes the fangs. Or sometimes it doesn't have fangs, and then you add the fangs. Does that make sense? So that's what I would say a good reformulation is. I would say a bad reformulation, a bad reconfiguration, is when it's just too far, and you're just like, Okay, well, you obviously had an idea and you wanted to execute that idea, and you have a platform to do it because you're remixing something popular, but you're just going off in a whole nother direction. And there's also good things about that, because sometimes that's really interesting and sometimes it's fun to tell someone, hey, you're going to remix this, and it's like, okay, sounds good, and then they just do something absolutely crazy. What's great about Brat remixes, or as it's actually called Brat, and it's completely different but also still Brat, is that it really does all of this. It really is mostly filled with either very good reminders or very good reformulations. It sometimes, I would say, goes on the scale of a little too simple, a little not changed enough, but in general, it really, really holds up. And the whole point of the entire thing, and that's why I really wanted to bring up the Revolver box set, is there's another re-word. So we have rejoice, reconfigure, remind. I said the word I was trying to build up first, but I don't edit my videos, goddammit. So if you don't know my stuff, I'm sorry. Let's just pretend I didn't. When you have a rhetorical trick and you screw it up that bad, you just have to take a sip of coffee. We have all of these re-words: remix, reconfigure, remind, but there's an important one that also is involved in a remix project, which is rejoice. To just rejoice in this great music, rejoice in this perfect album. You know, I'm going to be mentioning a colleague of mine, a fellow professor. I'm not going to say their name because I didn't ask. But we talk a lot about Taylor Swift together. We talk a lot about music, and I just moved onto his hallway, so it was exciting because the whole beginning of the semester has been kind of a mess, all these meetings, and I haven't had a chance to like talk to him. And so we were just talking, and you know, this like huge Taylor Swift fan's like, yeah, but really, Brat, this is the album of the year. I mean, he's also Charli XCX. And like, so we were just like talking, and we talked for probably like 15, 20 minutes just about how great this album is. And it's so fun to be reminded of something so great. And also, of course, we're getting towards the end of the year. All you Grammy voters, all you Stampy voters, just a little other kind of reminder that, hey, you have this great album, don't forget it, okay? So the ways that it changes the album, you know, I think I'm also going to be, at the very, very end, talking about her Zane Lowe interview, which I watched and found interesting. My colleague said Zane Lowe is too annoying to watch. I get that point. I don't quite agree with it. I actually like some of Zane Lowe's stuff. But Zane Lowe was trying to say, like, I don't know how to do his accent. This is, crikey, this is really a club album. Is he from New Zealand, though? Anyways, this is really a club album, you know? And that may be true, but it's also really a headphones album. I mean, you can really get lost in these remixes. It's really, really great. So sometimes it does feel like it's just trying to be clubby and dancey, but other times I think it's meant, you know, especially on a song like So I, or I Think About It All the Time, and it is really meant to just have your headphones in and just start dreaming and thinking. Maybe a little too much of the kind of semi-Charli rap thing. I will say one thing I really appreciated in the Zane Lowe interview was she mentioned, speaking of I Think About It All the Time, the influence of the Streets. So, you know, I'm a fairly big The Streets fan, and I did mention that in my review of the album, which led to me being a New York Times cited Charli XCX scholar. Watch one of my previous videos if you don't know the story behind that. I was in the New York Times talking about Charli XCX. This is a strange world, everybody. A strange world. But that made me really happy because I really hear a lot of the Streets in this whole album. And I really just want to say, like, if you don't know the Streets, you should really check it out, because a lot of what I find interesting is there's a lot more rap on this album, but I like that Charli XCX is really dedicated to European rap. Now listen, I'm an American, and rap music is a Black American subculture for and by Black Americans, but it also, obviously, has become a tool for anybody in the world who feels like they're voiceless, regardless of race or gender, etc. And so, in that way, I love that this album is very rap-like, but, you know, there's not like a Quavo verse. You know, she's not getting Drake to hop on there and tank the whole thing. Dude can't get a hit. random stray for Drake. I gotta tell you, it always helps my videos. But you know, the fact that she's mentioning Mike Skinner, and we'll get into it. We'll get into the kind of rap stuff here. In general, the guests are kind of funny because I'm in a weird place as a 47-year-old suburban dad on his back porch as the sun rises, which is nice because as of now, the only light on me is my computer, which is the computer that I use for my notes. So like, I listened to this album with my 16-year-old daughter, who is also, you know, she's fairly brat. She's maybe like, you know, maybe not the whole word, maybe just the last part, but you know, she really likes the album quite a bit. And we had this funny thing where we'd listen to a song and I'd be like, oh, yes, that's Shy Girl, another really good European kind of electronic dance music artist. And she'd be like, okay, cool. And then Troye Sivan comes on. I'm like, who is Troye Sivan? Is he like was he dancing around on Saturday Night Live? Like, who is he? And I didn't know who Addison Rae was, you know, so we had this kind of fun interchange of discussion. And what I like is that for the most part, the way that it works on a remix album with guests is the guests are there and they're sort of one of two things. Now, I didn't make a painstakingly recreated Arial font for these words, by the way. Do I not earn your respect? Look at how much that looks like Arial font right there. I don't have good handwriting. That was work. You know, I could hold up. You know, guests on a remix album are either happy to be here or let us bend the music to my style. Okay? They're either happy or they bend. And a lot of people on this album are just happy to be here and participate, and it's all a fun, big party. And then some of them are just like, what if I changed it to my style? Thank you for auditing. God damn it, I am so lost this morning. I apologize, everybody. I'm supposed to do my pitch now where I ask you to like the video. Was that charmingly unprofessional of me? Will that get you to smash the like bucket? Will that get you to subscribe? Will that get you to say AVAA in the comments, which stands for awesome video as always? I hope it will. Bear with me here. The sun is taking an awful long time to rise, and it's cold in Western New York. I don't have a sponsor. There's a lot of reasons why. The main reason is it's a pain in the butt. The other reason is, you know, I have a good job, so I would rather not be irresponsible with whatever influence I may have. But if I have any influence on you, especially musically, and I told you this before in a video, FCUKERS, the Fasuckers. Okay, it's probably supposed to be pronounced the Fuckers. They're a New York band. They've released an EP, and if you like Brat, you should like that. It's dirty, it's raunchy, it's slimy and sleazy and head boppy, and it's got this great ethereal female singer and a really strong band behind her, and it's kind of electro, but it's also kind of all you know, played with actual instruments. It's just a great album, and I said that, you know, this is how we can have a Brat Autumn, if you listen to that album. Obviously, we can have a Brat Autumn by listening to this album, and I'm now going to go through it. I'm going to go through it with my handy-dandy little papers here, okay? So let's start off with 360 featuring Robin and Young Lean. This is, for the most part, what I would call a classic Remind style remix. For the most part, it keeps the basic structure, but just kind of adds new people. Now, it's cool because this is the first time we have a Scandinavian rapper on here, not the last time. Swedish guy, Young Lean. But later, it's going to be much more transformative. Here, it stays kind of there. I do enjoy the kind of back and forth between the three of them. And I should say, musically, it's just a reminder, but lyrically, it's a reconfiguration. It's a reconfiguration of the lyrics. It means something different now. Before, it was really just about her and her influence and how great she is. But here, it's these three artists meditating on their place in the industry and what it is to be Charli or to be Robin or to be Young Lean. And this is that exciting, fun, cool thing that you can have when you have the mixture of it. That's why it's Brat, but it's completely different, but it's also still Brat, because it's able to mix in these things so well. Do you know what word is not said even once in the remix? I believe. I'm sure some Charli heads will tell me if it's said at least once, but I'm pretty sure it isn't. Julia. What is the word that you leave the original with? Julia. I'm so Julia. All right, remind, reconfigure. Oh, look at that, it's a little tough to titmouse. A little scared guy. And then we get to club classics. This is a pretty good example of reconfigure. You might hear me say reformulate. That's because I frustratingly put in my notes reformulate, but then I wrote down reconfigure. I'm having a rough day, y'all. I'm having a rough video, but you're still rocking with me. It's still well researched and done, I hope. You know, it's awesome the way it starts off and the way it feels like it's falling out of time. And in some ways, it's actually less, the term I want to use is sort of bratty, sort of like rough and ratty, as have like bratty, that being that kind of sound. In some ways, it's like less bratty, but in other ways, it's more because it really turns up these industrial sounds. But then it sort of flattens it out, and then it sort of like totally mixes together 365 into here with bumping that. So it's actually mixing together two songs to the point where you're like, wait, which song is this a remix of? And then we get the Spanish rap verse, which is maybe my favorite guest appearance on this album, and I've never heard of BB Tricks. I'd never actually heard of BB Tricks, but wow, is she great on this song. Like, you don't even really realize, hey, does this song need a rap verse? It turns out it does. And the thing I like, toy sonando en loop, brat, brat, in our club, like, club. Brat, like she's using the word brat, like brat, but she's using it like brat, like a gun sound, but not actually guns, but like, you know, when you're in the club and you're dancing, brat, you know, like the gun sounds and the kind of fun and the party. Like it's she's taking the English word and turning it into a Spanish onomatopoeia. Are you listening, New York Times? I am ready. Bring me back. I'll talk about onomatopoeia in music, okay? I talked about the etymology of the word brat and how it ties into classicism in a very fascinating way, because the original term was used to talk about people who had children who were wearing rags, which were called brats at the time. Check out the article if you haven't seen it. I'll include a link in the description. But like, you know, this turning, cool stuff. Very, very cool stuff. And then at the end, you know, like she's like rapping and these words get deformed and these like outro yelling distorted sounds. It still does remind you of the original because it is a club classic, because you're sitting there and you're in the club and that's the spirit of the song. It's still true to the spirit of the song, but it really reconfigures it in so many ways that you're just fascinated listening the entire time. Next song is Sympathy is a Knife. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is just like, this is such a wonderful mixture of these two things. Because musically, it's an interesting reconfiguration. You know, the music is just sort of more abstract. It's a little more thumpy. It's sort of just a little bit further out there. But then, what it does, and quite a few songs do on it, is it reminds and, let's throw out another one, reinforces the theme of the song in such a beautiful way. Part of what's great about Brat is that the way that she uses it, it sort of means nothing and means everything. So that's how she can say Kamala is Brat, and she doesn't mean that Kamala's got a thin ciggy and is out, you know, like at 4 a.m. in Ibiza. You know, she's not saying that. She's saying like, you know, this kind of fierce independent feminism, you know, like that kind of thing that she's saying. Like, it can mean so many things. That's how I can be Brat, despite the fact I've never even been to Ibiza. You know, not even once. And this is a great reminder of that power that the Brat feeling, the sort of transitive property of Brat. And actually, I keep comparing it to the Barbie moment of last summer, but it's that same kind of idea. The way that the Barbie movie was able to make it that you could not look like what you think Barbie looks like, you could not dress like you think Barbie looks like, and yet you could claim Barbie in some kind of feminist manifesto. That's how Brat works this summer and this fall. Popular feminism is great because people are listening to it. I'm not saying you shouldn't run out there and read Simone de Beauvoir. You should, but still. So having Ariana Grande on here is just great because it adds to the concept. It reinforces it. It makes it clear that Charlie's singing about Charlie, but the problems that Charlie's singing about are problems that all very, very famous celebrities have. And let's be honest, all women have on some level, even if they're not famous. Okay? And oh, it's just great. It's great. It's great how they both sing "It's a Knife" when they say they like the old me, they don't like the new me because who the fuck is she? It's beautiful. And Ariana Grande, I put a lot of thought into this, and I realized the following things about Ariana Grande. I don't like her voice. I don't like her songs, but I think she's good. So I don't know what to do with that. You know, it's like a personal taste thing. Like, she's a little too breathy, and just in general, her songs, like, don't do it for me. But, like, I think she's good. I'll probably review her next album positively, you know? But I just realized that I don't actually like her, which is a weird thing. But that's not to say I don't respect her, and especially with this lyric, "It's a knife when they dissect your body" on the front page. It's not a joke. It's not something that we should ever let ourselves off the hook for. The way that we continually reinvent ways of making women and girls feel bad about their body is an absolute tragedy. It's a travesty. It's a societal blight that keeps on going. And one of the ways that it exerts itself is that if Ariana Grande chooses or happens to gain 20 pounds, it will be a story. There will be literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars made on fat Ariana Grande. If she got fat, it would be literally millions of dollars of clicks and sells and eyeballs and advertising. Literally millions of dollars to shame this young woman for being in a way that she is not physically. So it's great. It's great. It does that thing that I'm telling you a good reminder album does. A good reminder deepens it. And this emphasizes and deepens it. The only problem is we need Taylor. Y'all work it out, okay? Y'all work it out. I know she did you dirty with re-releasing the bonus version of her album the same time you released your album, or whatever it is. But this whole, like, kumbaya, women working together, we gotta work it out. We need Taylor. We need Taylor on this, because this album is in many ways a Taylor Swift album, in the way that it tackles the perils of fame, in the way that people, "Oh, I don't like women, I don't like people who just sing about themselves." Taylor Swift is not singing about herself. She's singing about all women. She just happens to be a woman in a particular position, but that's why so many women relate to it, because it's their fucking life, you moron. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're not married to Travis Kelce and people are taking pictures for you. These are the pressures, which I am told, I don't live, obviously, I'm not a woman, but I have been told are very real. And that's what Charlie's doing. So, but I know, it can't happen right now. Next song is called "I Might Say Something Stupid," featured in 1975. And "I Might Say Something Stupid," I think this is the worst song on the album. And it's not even that it's bad. I realize what I just said about Ariana Grande is what I say about the 1975. It's like, I think they're good. They're probably a good force in the world. I think they're interesting, but I don't like listening to their music. So, you know, you see, you can choose to be mad at that, or you can choose to say, "Yeah, fair." I mean, you know, you're not saying they're bad. You're saying I don't like it. So I gotta check my monitor. Okay, she seems to be doing okay. She's moving around a little bit. So it's this dude, you know, Matty Healy's voice. It just kind of takes over a little too much. It's a little. I think this goes too far on the reconfigure mode. It's basically bent beyond legibility. Charlie's voice is like super altered and just thrown in from time to time, and there's this thing, right, where to a certain extent, you know, it's a reminder because he sings these lyrics, "I'm so cold, I don't know if I belong here anymore." And part of me is pissed because the way he sings it, and these are Charlie's lyrics from the original song, the way he sings it, it's so powerful and meaningful and deep, and you just feel the vulnerability and strength of these words. But Charlie fans don't need that. We don't need you to show us how deep and profound those lyrics are, because we felt it the first time. When she said, "I get so cold, I don't know if I belong here anymore," like, we don't need some British dude to just show up and sing it in a way where everything's acoustic and all of a sudden we take it seriously, you know? The same way I argue, you know, we didn't need You know, like that people who really appreciate Taylor Swift's art didn't need Evermore and Everlong and whatever, the 2 acoustic albums, to say, oh, yes, she's a real artist with real feelings. We already knew it. Anyways, it's fine. It's an interest. Remember, even the bad reconfigurations are interesting because they're doing something new, which is what this is. Talk Talk featuring Troye Sivan. Timothy Chalamet played him on Saturday Night Live, my daughter tells me. Social media superstar. This is really just a reminder. I'd say this is another low point on the album because it's just very much just the same song with just like a happy to be there guest appearance. I do like how it emphasizes the language aspects here. Talk to me in Spanish, talk to me in French. Thank you. There used to be a stereotype of Americans who'd go to France, who'd go to Spain, who'd go to Italy, and they'd become what's called Eurotrash. That used to be a thing that people would be criticized for, but as a language professor, I want that back. Eurotrash was an insult, but those people learned languages and experienced other cultures, even if they were kind of colonial and annoying and just like, oh my God, whatever. At least they were doing that in some place more interesting than New York or Los Angeles. Ugh. I mean, what's the point of being like rich and jet-setty if you're not going to be in Europe, you know? So I appreciate that aspect of this. There's even some French at the end. I was like really impressed because her French, I am a French professor, that's my actual full-time job. Her French was really good. Like ça valait la peine, like she's using irregular verb valoir in the imperfect tense. I'm like, damn, Charli XCX knows French. Turns out it's Dua Lipa. So it makes sense people from other countries do better with language. So I really enjoy that. There is kind of a, wild sex line in here, like, sex with you is amazing. No, when you fuck me, it's crazy. That's like, doesn't even rhyme. Like, there's something really raw and very sexual about that is very efficient. Efficient. That's what you want to hear. That's what you want to hear when you're talking sexy. Oh, baby, that was efficient. Next is Von Dutch. This is really wild because it's a real reconfigure. It's a real reconfigure because it's like taking out the hook. It's like defanging it, Like the number one is just said once. And it's taking out the hook. And that's what I love because it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different feeling. Basically, to use the parlance of the young people, it's taking a bop and turning it into a vibe, Addison Rae is on this. Again, my daughter explained who she is. I want to say I'm proud of my daughter because she said, well, Addison Rae was a social media star and then she was an actress and everyone made fun of her. And initially I was doing that too. I was just joining along with everybody else making fun of her. But then I realized we're really just making fun of her because she's a woman who's trying to be creative and successful. So I don't make fun of her anymore. Hey, that's what you want. That's what you want to hear your kids say. That's how you know you're raising good kids. She's not dogpiling on the internet for somebody who I don't even know who she is. I do like the breakdown. It's very A.G. Cookie here, this flangey sound with an auto-tune, sort of a weird kind of orgasm sound, and the flanges up and down. I will say my biggest complaint about this album is something that I understand. Charli XCX is trying to make... Are you keeping track of how many mistakes I'm making during this video? Please tell me in the comments every single mistake I've made on this video, because this has been ridiculous. This is not good, okay? If my colleague is watching, put me up before the college board. I might have my tenure revoked for how many mistakes I made in this video. But like, I get a little tired of her talking about who she's doing the song with and how they recorded it, because it's all over the place. It makes sense in the sort of girl power spirit, the sort of artistic spirit. It's sort of where she is right now, and you get this sort of like sense and the vibrancy, but it's just like, so I talked to Lord, so I called up Billy, oh, I linked up with Addison, and we're on Melrose, oh, and I talked to this person, oh, it's like, all right, okay, we get it. Did you record it quickly? Is that what happened? Did you record this thing quickly? Did you tell that? Okay. Next is Everything is Romantic with Caroline Polachek. More of a kind of reconfiguring song here. I really love the way there's this trick they do where they do fall in love, fall in love again and again, fall in love again and again, and then fall in love, fall in, fall. So it has this kind of like weird symmetrical sampling here, this great cut up. The problem I have is sometimes when you're listening to music or when you love music, you get something and you just get a little joke in your head or you get a little comparison in your head. And Caroline Polachek, the way that she raps in this doesn't remind me of any rapper except for The Lonely Island. Speaking of Saturday Night Live. Do you remember the song Jizz in My Pants by The Lonely Island? The way that this is rapped is, I just, leave this place, go back to yours. Our lips first touch outside your doors. A whole night we've got in store. Whisper in my ear that you want some more. And it's just exactly the Jizz in My Pants flow. So that's, if you don't know the song, boy, what the hell am I talking about? If you do know the song, I ruined this remix for you. I do love the lyric, though, living the dream but not living your life. What more do we want? Do you know what happened? Taylor Swift heard that and went, damn it. Damn it. That's a great lyric. That is such a good lyric. You would think that I wrote it. That is a Taylor-level quality lyric of figuring out a way to sing about your very specific lived experience that can be universal to anyone that listens to your music. Living the dream but not living your life, awesome. In general, I would say it doesn't really live up to the sum of its parts, like Charli and Caroline, this is going to be amazing, but at the end it sort of does, because it becomes kind of spiritual. There's this like church bells in the distance and this singing, and it's really nice, and thematically it's just a reinforcement of the kind of things that are ugly and beautiful at the same time. And then we get to what I think is the best song on the album, Rewind featuring Blady. Blady, you can call him Blade, but he did say in one song that you can call him Blady, and I'm nothing if not a stickler for how things are written. So Blady, featuring Charli XCX. This is my favorite reconfigure. This is my favorite reconfigure because it still reminds you of the original. It still has a lot of the same hook, but they literally drained it. So Blady's part of this whole Drain Gang thing, which is this Swedish rap collective that makes kind of airy and light and emotionally troubled hip-hop. And this feels, they took out the stabbing synths and they threw on more kind of washing, wavy synths. And it's great. And his lyrics and her lyrics are great because it's tied into this. It's sort of doing the Remind thing where it's taking the original theme and it's deepening it, because she's talking about rewinding to different times in her life, sort of before fame and things are simpler. And here it's just about like this line. She says, money makes me so competitive. And then later she says, LA makes me so competitive, sometimes I want to wake up dead. And to me, I think those things are connected. And I think she's saying that money makes her want to wake up dead. That like this competitive thing, this competitive nature, put that down in my mistakes, this competitive thing, this what's happening in this whole story, this whole song is just like, she's so sad. She's so like alienated from herself in this quest to be the biggest and to be the most successful artist she can be. And then Blady just perfectly augments that with his rapping. It's just great. And there's a great kind of bloopy bit there too. Then another awesome one, So I, featuring A.G. Cook. And this is reminding through reconfiguration. That's what this is. Because it is so, musically, it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit more maybe nuanced, a little bit better produced. I don't know. I like this. The great kind of fractured sound of the recorder, which sounds to me like Sophie's Ghost. But what I love about this as a reconfiguration and a reminder is that there's a couple different ways of mourning somebody. You can think about how much you lost them and regret the things that you didn't get to say or do. Or you can rejoice in the times that you had together, and you can talk about the good times. And those things don't always go together. So the original So I was that first thing, was her saying, you were more than a hero and a human, and I meant to talk to you more, and I really should have been a better friend, and all that stuff. And then this song is her saying, literally, I counted it, it's 4,972 times. She says, now I want to talk about the good times. Okay? She just talks about the good times, and she talks about all these fun memories. And if you listen to the Zane Lowe interview, she even mentions getting this birthday cake for this party for Sophie at the Gelsons. And I used to live in LA. I know that Gelsons. Gelsons is where people want to, If you go to Whole Foods and you're like, man, this is just way too cheap, then you go to Gelson's. Although Gelson's they did have a thing at least 20 years ago called turkey pinwheels, one of my favorite meals in all of LA. I used to go pick up some turkey peas, man, turkey pinwheels. It was good stuff. Anyways, don't go to Gelson's if you can avoid it. But anyways, so she went to Gelson's and picked up this pot, and this the cake. And this is the thing. Put that as a mistake. This is the thing. You cry when you hear her sing the original song about her regrets and her feelings and how sad it is that she doesn't have her friend anymore. And now she's celebrating her life and the good times that they had. And you know what you do? You cry again. It's a deepening. It's a totally different style of mourning, but it deepens the original mourning. Oh, hey, remember how I said I don't do sponsorships? This is my second non-sponsorship. You are still wrong about the Sophie album. I will take all my chips as a music critic who is sometimes right and push them all in on that second Sophie album, on the posthumous album that her brother produced. It's getting all sorts of hate. People going out there saying it's not good, all that. I'm the guy who knew that Whole Lotta Red was good before everyone else did. I'm telling you, it's a tough album, but it's a perfect posthumous album. I truly believe it is the best possible album it could be given the circumstances. History will validate me. History will validate Benny Long and the estate of Sophie. And so just get on board now, because that's a really good album. It's just not the album you wanted, because none of us wanted her to die. Can we just deal with that fact? Okay? Whew. Girl's so confusing. I already did a whole video about that. But let's put this into my schema. This is 2 videos in a row where I don't know how to pronounce schema. Schema? Schema? My nose itches. Side of my nose, not the inside. Remind. This is a pure remind. This just reinforces the main theme of the song. Doesn't change that much, but it deepens it because it's a conversation about solidarity between women, about how women are pitted against each other, and we have Lord. We couldn't have got Taylor on there too. Come on, work it out. Oh, shit. That's what needs to happen next. The Taylor Charli album. Oh my God, I just understood it. Because how is Taylor going to kind of get back to her winning ways? You know, the last album was good, but not a lot of people loved it. She sure needs to do something different. How does Charli keep going? She mentions that in the Zane Lowe interview. She knows whatever she's going to do next isn't going to be it. But if Charli and Taylor work together, if we had Barbie and Bratz working together at the same time, making an album around these same themes, oh my God, I just did it. I did it, everybody. We did it, Joe. I figured out how to say, how to help these wildly, this 47-year-old dude in his bathrobe figured out how to help these wildly successful women. Good job mansplaining. Oh my God, you can't stop it. Okay, listen, it's how we're socialized. What am I supposed to do? Next track is called Apple, featuring the Japanese house. This is fine. It's kind of a reminder. I don't like the original that much. I mean, it's fine, but it's not my favorite track. Let's move on to B2B featuring Tinashe. And what I love about this is it's a reminder of how killer the song is. It throws in a little bit of stutter step, but it also reconfigures the song quite a bit, because the original song is about not getting back together again. It was a we'll never get back together thing. Here, it's about life. It's about how hard it is being successful, about how just you have to be in 5 cities in 14 days or 14 cities in 5 days. I forget which one it is. And Tinashe's got the same feeling. And hey, Tinashe, want to do the song? 2 days later, we got the vocals cut. Oh my God, I know. Okay. But it's an interesting idea of moving on, because it's like this remix album is Brat, but it's also a remix album about what's happened after Brat came out. It's an interesting meta text on the fame, on the success that she's had. Also, lyric genius, rap genius. I appreciate you very much, but there's more French in here. 10 ans plus tard et toujours en place. And someone translated that as 10 years later, still in place, which is a literal translation, but not a correct translation. To be en place is like to be on point. You know what I'm saying? To just be like, je suis en place. You know, in my bathrobe, je suis en place. It's like, I'm fashionable, I'm cool. So like 10 years later, okay, so it doesn't literally mean in place. But that's okay. Hey, we don't teach languages in this country anymore. We barely ever did in the first place. Then we have Mean Girls featuring Julia Casablancas, which is the most reconfigure of the whole thing. Even more than the 1975 song, except the difference is I love Julian Casablancas and I love the Strokes. Okay, so it works for me more. What I love is that the way that they reminded you of the song is they took the little piano outro, the little and made that the basis of the entire remix. And then Julian Casablancas, just like he is just like Casablanking everywhere, all over the song. This is caked in Casablancness because like he's doing 5 different Casablanca style modes. He also completely plagiarizes the band Yes. If you have never heard the song Owner of a Lonely Heart. Owner of a lonely heart. Owner of a lonely heart. Much better than owner of a lonely heart. Killer 80s song. My brother used to listen to it upstairs, in the attic, in his little room. I remember sitting there listening to the song thinking it was cool. Like, they need to pay royalties. Like, they're going to get sued. It's that close. But that's cool because that's not the only part of the song. This is cool new bridge, full Casablanca style. It even reminds me strongly of Instant Crush, the song from Daft Punk, which even though I love the Strokes, is still the Casablanca song I know the best. There's even some vocoder there, kind of getting the Daft Punk area. It's great. It's great, but this is just really just reconfiguring off into space. Also, I think about it all the time, is kind of a similar thing. And this is interesting. In that conversation with my colleague, when we were talking about the difference between the Tortured Poets Society and this, is that like, even though this is brat and it's party and it's, you know, do a little bump on my key, all that stuff, it's also really emotionally true. And he pointed out that I think about it all the time with its conflict over this stage of life makes so much sense because if you're this age, even if, you know, that this is a thing you think about. And like Charli really nailed it with this song. So once again, oh my God, what if Taylor was on this song? What if Taylor added her own thoughts of ambiguity about career versus motherhood, you know? Oh, it would have been great. Instead, we get Bon Iver, which is great because Bon Iver is great. We have a great reconfiguration of the song with it turning into Bon Iver, Bon Iver. I know it's pronounced Bon Iver. I'm a French professor, okay? I know it's pronounced Bon Iver, but I say Bon Iver because they don't spell it properly, so I assume they're trying to goof around with the language. But don't you tell me in the comments how it's pronounced. I'm aware, but that's not how it's spelled, so I'm going to call it Bon Iver. And it's really nice because musically it is such a reconfiguration, but then lyrically it really continues the theme. It really continues the theme to the point where now Charli is mentioning her partner by his first name. First off, you're bound to the album, then you're locked into the promo. Next thing, 3 years have gone by. That's what happens with big albums. Brat is going to take 3 years of her life. She's in her 30s. It gets not at all impossible, but much more difficult to have babies the older you get, okay? Past the age of 35, it does get increasingly difficult. Past the age of 40, even more difficult. Hey, I've known women who had babies at 50. It definitely happens, but it gets more difficult. More steps, more processes, more risks, more dangers. It's a very real thing. And most of my viewers are young, so you don't know all this stuff. I do. I'm a 47-year-old guy who has a 19-year-old and a 2-month-old. So, you know, I've thought a lot about having children and the importance of having children. So it's true. These 3 years are not inconsequential 3 years. They're not. There's 3 years when you're not thinking about having babies, which is you go, woo, okay, no big deal. But then there's 3 years when you are thinking about having babies, which are like, oh, when's this? Me and George sit down and try to plan for our future, but there's so much guilt involved when we stop working. No, terrible. This is the world that we lived in. This is the world that we choose to live in. This is the capitalist hellscape that we have chosen to live in, where this sentence makes sense to billions of people. There's so much guilt involved when we stop working, because you're not supposed to stop when things start working. There's a lot of things I love about Missy Elliott. Easy top 10 most important figures in hip-hop, maybe top 5 most important figures in hip-hop. Missy Elliott, unbelievable. She stopped to have kids, you know? She's just like, yeah. I'm just gonna revolutionize music, just completely change what rappers can do, what female rappers can do, completely create the architecture for how female rappers especially can alternate between singing and rapping, and also make a lane for women in pop music to be weird and not just sexy. And then I'm just gonna dip. And then I'm gonna raise my kids, you know? But it sucks, because we don't have more Missy Elliott albums. We had to stop at The Cookout, which is a great album, by the way. But we had to stop there. We're now waiting for her to come back. It's, you know, and just, you know, it's tough. It's tough because I'm somebody who really believes in ambition, who really believes in work, and I love what I'm doing. But then I'm also somebody who's just like, just have kids. We don't need a brat too. We're good. We're good. Just have kids. If you want to have kids, have kids. If you don't have kids, don't. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Don't have kids if you don't have kids. Big mistake people make. They have kids when they don't want them. Bad move. But if it's something you know you want to do, you got to do it at some point, you know? And working is not actually more important than having kids, if you want to have kids. 365, I love Shy Girl. You know, I feel bad because I think I reviewed one Shy Girl album, and then I don't review everything because I don't get a lot of clicks on that, and I don't have that much to say new about her new stuff that I did about her old stuff, but I really love her style. Very brattiness. I really enjoy the way that this is just reconfigured to just be harder. You know, it's just more of what it is. Maybe it's actually more of a reminder, actually, now that I think about it. It's just more of a reminder, just over and over again. It's just potty go, 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 potty go. Then you just hear the words "pago" until you just like one syllable, and you're like Sorry, I sound like RFK Jr. And I love it. It's great because it makes you dance. And then we get to the song "Guess," which I've already done a whole video about. Very Billie Eilish. It deepens the story. Okay, it adds a gay layer to the song, which I think is very important and interesting. It doesn't make it much brattier, it doesn't do much to the original song, but it deepens. It reminds you of why you love the song in the first place, and it makes it deeper. And again, maybe you thought, I love The Dare, so I'm going to listen to his new album, and you're a little disappointed in it because it wasn't as good as you thought it would be. Listen to the Fuckers, FCUKERS, New York Trio, awesome. Whatever that cool kind of New York slimy feeling you want, that's where you're going to find it. Thank me in the comments after you listen to the Fasukers, okay? Thank me in the comments. Hey, I got Patreons. They help me to buy music, like Brat back there, which I bought at the Record Archive in Rochester, New York. Not a sponsor. I'm not sponsored. I just appreciate good record stores. We don't have a lot up here in Rochester, New York, but we do have good record stores. The Bop Shop. You know what I'm saying? Record Archive. That weird part of House of Guitars. Rochesterians know what I'm talking about. What is that weird barn in the back of House of Guitars? Some weird shit back there. Man, House of Guitars. Never been there. Put that on your bucket list. I also offer Patreons a chance to get a shout out. I don't care what level you're at. I don't care. If I remember to ask for shout outs, you're getting one if you want one. Like Toby Repellent, Harlan T, Mig Online, Obadiah Bumbly, It's Bundo, Jeff Capps, and Jack Dyson. I promise I'll talk a little bit more about the Zane Lowe interview. It's fascinating because she claims to care more about marketing than about the music, which I think is funny and weird because she's such a great musician, but also fascinating because she seems to really understand the correlation between it. She talked about how this cover was her idea and everyone thought it was a bad idea, but she understood what it was, which means maybe, Charli XCX starts a record company. Just start a label. Have your babies. Start a record label. Sign the Fasukers. Actually, they're a Ninja Tune. That's a good label. I don't know. Find someone like the Fasukers, you know, and just use that influence to become a high-powered businesswoman. You know what I'm saying? Why not? I love the way she describes relationship to her audience. The audience is hungry for us to succeed, and we just have to give it to them. And I think that's what's happening right now. I think this whole parasocial thing that's happening with social media means there's a whole bunch of artists where, and it wasn't always like this, okay? I was a huge, I don't know, Nirvana fan back in the 90s, but I wasn't like sitting there like desperately hoping that In Utero goes #1. I wasn't invested in that. I wasn't trying to figure that out. And I just think that's interesting. Apparently the cover was just an attempt to save money. That's how she's a business person, because she knows that what people want is, you know, her, but that she didn't want to spend money on the shoot, so she just did that. Normally, I throw a basketball and try and get it in there, but I have something back there that I don't want knocked over. If you saw my original Brat video, tell me in the comments why I don't want that thing knocked over. All right, until next time, let's see how the baby's doing. Ooh, I better get her to the potty. There's the camera.